In this morning's PIX Parenting Plus, is parenting getting harder?
For the first time ever, the U.S. Surgeon General issued a warning about the mental health crisis for parents. So what's changed? Tomika Anderson, founder of Motivated Mamas, joins us now to talk us through modern-day parenting with ease. Tomika, great to see you.
Hello, good to see you too.
Yeah, so there's so many different ways to parenting and the approaches. I think that's probably what's stressing us out, right? There's so many options. We got gentle parenting, attachment parenting, free-range parenting, and now you're saying there's a new style called intensive parenting. What is it and what are the pros and cons there?
Intensive parenting, I think, is really just helicopter parenting with a new face to it. Instead of monitoring, what your kids are doing, it's monitoring who they're becoming. And I think there's definitely the pros and cons of this, right? Unlike with past generations, our parents are spending more time with their kids. They're more emotionally engaged with their kids. They're giving their kids the ability to tell them, hey, you did this wrong, or you hurt my feelings, or this is what I need. And I think the challenge really comes in for parents when they haven't sort of put the oxygen mask on themselves first, right? We're always talking about, and with good reason, the mental health crisis among kids, things like suicide, connected to social media, et cetera. But I think for the first time, we're really being honest, right, as parents about what that looks like for us psychologically. And I think one of the main things that we have to be sure to do is not turn intensive parenting into fear-based parenting. Because when you do that, the kids pick up on that, and that becomes something that guides them in a not great way.
Yeah, I feel like I might be guilty of that a little bit. I mean, 70% of parents that were surveyed, they think that parenting is a lot harder today than it was like 20 years ago. You mentioned social media. Do you think that that has a huge role in the reason why parents are really finding it a struggle?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, so I don't necessarily think that parenting is harder than it was. I just think that what's happening is that we have so many different things that we're doing at the same time. Yeah. We're monitoring them for the digital. We're monitoring them for the emotional. We're monitoring them for schools and how they perform in schools. We're monitoring them for their mental health, right? And so we've been doing this, but it's just like there's no off button. We're continually like just looking at all the ways in which we could potentially fail. And I think we have to look at the ways that we could potentially win. And I think one of the ways that social media can be a really good space is by connecting with other parents who have some of the same challenges. Through Motivated Mamas, for instance, that's one of the things that we talk about, honestly. Like, what are the ways in which we feel like we are doing well, and what are the ways that we feel like we can pull back because we're seeing the impact negatively on our kids?
Yeah, it's true. Finding your tribe is so important because sometimes we just get in our head, and it's nice to kind of talk to people who are going through the same thing. Research also shows that today's parents, they're more emotionally engaged. They're spending more time with their children than in previous generations. So that seems great, but is there also a downside to that?
Downside exists when you haven't done your own work, right? I've been a single mom for most of my son's life. He's 13 years old. And one of the sort of secret sauces for me has been therapy. And I think that that's a really good tool to use to do a check-in, where you're not kind of like projecting on your kids your fear, but you're having like a safe space to talk about the things that you're going through and the ways that you're trying to show up for your kid. And I also feel like being able to call that mom on the phone and just vent.
Yeah.
I'm struggling. That's a real thing too. So it's just like being kind to ourselves, right? And reminding ourselves there's not one way to do it. And also that tendency to kind of look and see what other parents are doing online, and not compare. Comparison is a thief of joy is one of my favorite quotes. And I believe that to be true. So it's just making sure that you are good with yourself and calm with yourself so that you can parent from a really healthy place.
Yeah. When you say therapy, though, I'm sure a lot of parents out there feel overwhelmed with that just because of the cost. So I think it's important that you say, you can just talk to your friends. That's also therapy. Can we talk about the boundaries that we have to kind of set? We were talking about social media. We have to kind of have that flexibility and make those boundaries. What's the healthiest way to do that with social media, technology? The kids always have their phones, their tablets, and they're just wanting that instant gratification.
Yeah, so I'm a bit of an old school mom. My son only has access to devices that are not school-based on the weekends.
Okay.
And then another thing that I know that parents are already doing is just monitoring their kids' devices. Now, is this a foolproof way? No, because their friends have devices. They can get on, they can find out what's going on social media accounts. My son's 13, he doesn't have any social media accounts. We encourage reading in our household, actually hard books. And I know that may seem a little bit old-fashioned to some, but it's really worked. You know, my son's got straight A's. He's a great student. He's socially connected to his friends because he spends quality time in person with them and not online. Which is not to say that parents are doing it wrong if they allow their kids to have more screen time. It's just being very aware of how screen time is showing up in all the different areas of their kids' lives.
I love that. Lean into what's working for you, right? So bottom line, what can parents do to just make things a little easier on ourselves?
Take a deep breath.
Give yourself some grace.
Relax.
Pat on the back.
Exactly. Remind yourself that there's no wrong way of doing parenting if you're doing it with intention and love.
Yeah.
I love
All right.
that.
Great advice. Tomika Anderson, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy
you
Mother's Day,
too.
Tomika.
You
Thank you so
too.
much. We appreciate you.